Okay, hi guys. Welcome back to another podcast episode. There are a few things I need to address first. This is a podcast where the premise is like I'm rambling about things while I crochet or knit, and there is no yarn in sight. First, I'm just like very burnt out from moving. And secondly, this is a topic that requires like a little bit more of my brain. So I kind of wanted to experiment with just recording. I feel like sometimes I don't look forward to recording the podcast because it's low-key a brain workout to like speak very coherently and work on a project at the same time. So maybe I won't always crochet and knit. Like being able to just sit in bed and yap like this is really nice. But I'm getting off topic. Today's episode is about breakups. We're going back to the like deep, sad topics. I alluded on my Instagram story maybe like 2 months ago that I was going through something and I was struggling with my mental health, and I almost didn't want to like come on here and expose that it was a breakup because the way I was acting, you would have thought someone died or something. I think I have a tendency to talk about difficult topics on the podcast like retrospectively. And while I was going through this breakup, I was like, even though I've been through this multiple times, like it's not the same as like being in the midst of it. I'm pretty much out of it. I'm feeling really good now, but I kind of wanted to talk about it while it's still fresh because I think it's really easy to look back and be like, oh, I did this and I did this and it worked. Versus when you're in it, you're like, I'm doing every possible thing for my mental health under the sun, and I'm still miserable. The other thing I want to mention is that this wasn't like technically a breakup. It was like, whatever, a multi-month exclusive talking stage, call it what you want. But it was like the closest I've gotten to a relationship in pretty much my adult life. And it was like the first person that I could really see a future with. It wasn't just some like, shitty situationship who like treats you like nothing, I want to make it really clear that I haven't experienced a breakup from like a long-term relationship or someone that like I legitimately thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And I don't want to think about what that would do to me. I feel like I would have to be institutionalized. But I really want to acknowledge that like I don't know what that feels like, and I'm not going to pretend to know. But I do think a lot of the like neuroscience behind breakups is more or less similar. And I often find that when I'm going through like a not breakup, I feel a bit alienated by a lot of the breakup advice because they're just like speaking on the assumption that it was like a formal, serious relationship. So I just wanted to be clear that this is a space for just like any situation where you're like trying to detach from someone that you were romantically involved with, maybe not even romantically involved with. Sorry, there's so many disclaimers to this video. You're going to be like, dude, is there even any fucking advice? Now, actually getting into the breakup itself, there are definitely phases. And for me, like breakups, dating, romantic stuff is kind of the biggest trigger for my depression, which I've pretty much struggled with most of my life. So I would say that in the beginning, I don't even have what you would call a crash out. It's just like a really deep, dark, depressive episode. God, this is so dramatic now that I'm like recounting it now that I've come out of it. But for like a full 7 days, pretty much, I like didn't get out of bed. I wasn't brushing my teeth. I wasn't showering. I was like barely drinking water, eating. I wasn't scrolling. I was literally just lying in my bed, crying until I fell asleep, and then waking up naturally and then crying and sleeping, and like that was kind of it. And I am very fortunate that I don't have a corporate job and I could kind of like push some brand deals back and just take a week to be catatonic. But I think even if you don't struggle with mental health, like if you deal with a breakup, sudden or not, there is this initial period where I was like getting TikToks where it's like I did everything but die. That's literally what it felt like. I was like basically ceasing to exist. And you have to, I know some people are different and some people immediately are like, let's go out, I want to distract myself. But I think most people have an initial period where you're like, my life is ending and you just can't do anything. And you have to go through that. And my advice is not for that period, because nothing could really help me in that period, to be honest, besides my antidepressants. I will say, if you are feeling like you're getting stuck in that stage, which was definitely kind of happening to me, I'm so grateful. Like, I mean, I've been through like that kind of depressive episode many times in my life, and every time it's my friends that pull me out of it, because I'm like way too depressed or anxious to like leave my apartment. But friends will come in, they'll bring me food, make sure I'm drinking water, make sure I'm eating. And even if all they do is like sit next to my bed while I like stare at the ceiling and cry, it's like slowly exposing yourself to the outside world a little bit. And I've talked about this like in my dopamine menu episode, but getting out of a depressive cycle, it like starts with like doing one small thing, getting that dopamine hit, and then doing the next thing. So I find it's really helpful for friends to come over and help me do like a basic task to start that cycle. Like with this breakup, I like came back to my apartment and I had like a hamper of my laundry, because I used to do my laundry at his place because he had in-unit laundry, which by the way, I now have. So who even needs a man? Am I right? No, but I like could not put this laundry away, partially because I couldn't do anything, and partially because like I think any remnants from like the day it happened, I just didn't want to face. And my friend just like helped me put the laundry away. And then even after she left, I was like, okay, I feel capable of doing things. Like I showered. So that's like kind of the only advice I have for that phase. But this is kind of for like when you've moved on with your life and you're more or less functional, but you're just like deeply, deeply miserable. Part of the reason I'm making this, like, it's not because I think I have so much wisdom. I think it's because when I was going through it, I was very much on like breakup TikTok, you know, like the really sad poems and the tarot card readings that are like, he's gonna come back, which I actually get less of because I scroll past those now. But I also was getting a lot of like psychologists and like neuroscientists like talking about the science behind breakups. And I think this was helpful for me because I think a lot of the thoughts and thought processes that are really helpful for breakups I have seen before, right? Like giving yourself closure and like whatever, detaching your self-worth from how this person treats you, all that. And those kinds of ideas you like see on TikTok and it makes you feel better for an instant, but it's like a passing moment, right? And these videos I was seeing were more about like very actionable things that you can do that like scientifically will help your brain move on. And I was getting so much of it that it was like, you know, when you get like so much advice or like so many ideas for how to fix your life that you're just overwhelmed and you do nothing. So I kind of wanted to take like some of the advice I've been seeing and consolidate it and organize it. I mean, obviously for y'all, but also for myself, so that I'm not just like saving these videos, but trying to implement some of this stuff in my life. And I'm recording this episode a little later than I expected to. Like originally I was going to talk about it a week or two ago when I was like much more not doing so good. But now that I'm like a little bit on the other end of it, I can confirm that some of it really does work. So the first thing that you have to really accept is that you are literally in withdrawal. Like you're used to having these hits of like serotonin and like oxytocin from like physical touch. And it's like a drug, like your system is suddenly shocked by not having this anymore. And I saw one TikTok that was like, don't romanticize this feeling of withdrawal as like they were the love of my life and it's some great loss, when you are just experiencing a chemical reaction, basically. I can't lie, I feel like this is a little bit less applicable for this situation because this, I don't want to like get too into it because this video isn't really about me. But there's someone that I think I will always think highly of and think would have been like a good partner for me if like the mutual feelings were where they should have been. So I don't know that I was romanticizing it too much, to be honest. I think it genuinely did feel like a loss to me. But I've also been in situations where like it's some really shitty dude. And even if they had like wanted me back or done all the right things, like this is never someone I would have wanted to have a relationship with. And I think in those scenarios, I used to beat myself up so much for like feeling so attached to them and like feeling so affected, because I'm like, this isn't technically even a loss. Like you didn't even lose a good thing. So just remember, like, regardless of how good this person was, whether they actually made your life better or not, this is just an attachment that you had that's gone. And your brain is going to have to like go through the withdrawal symptoms that result from that. Next piece of advice is like the least revolutionary thing you're ever going to hear, but it's like removing triggers. This one feels like really relevant for me. I think if you have like OCD, ADHD, I don't know, if you're like neurodivergent, I actually think this is a very common behavior even for neurotypical people when they're dealing with breakups, but I think it's maybe just like a heightened version if you're neurodivergent. But you do certain behaviors like, it's like almost like scratching an itch. Like, for example, after breakups, I will like check this person, like when they were last active on Instagram. Like, it gives you no information. It's not even like you're checking their stories or you're looking at their posts. It's literally just like, okay, cool, they were on Instagram like 47 minutes ago. But it's just like anything you can do to like feel connected to them. And it almost becomes just this like fixation, or like it doesn't make you feel good, but you're like addicted to doing it. Someone who's like actually a psychologist probably has like way better vocabulary for this, but you know what I mean. The other thing I want to say about removing triggers though is that it is on your own timeline. I think I used to like feel so much pressure to like unfollow them, block their number, like delete all the photos, do all this in the beginning. And I think it's totally okay to let go in phases. Like for me, I'm still friendly with this person, so I'm not ever gonna like block them or like harshly cut them out of my life. I have done that with like certain people that I knew would like come back as soon as their next girl didn't work out or whatever and like come back to terrorize me. But this was like a very amicable thing. So it's not like relevant where it's like I need to like take away the power for him to like ever re-enter my life. It's not like that, right? But I found myself like reading our old messages a lot in the beginning, which I know sounds unhealthy, but I think I have been through a lot of these situations where someone is like very excited in the beginning about me and like very enamored with me. And it gives me this sense of psychological safety. And then that like goes away for whatever reason. In a sense, it can be kind of validating for me to like go back and like see how this person used to talk to me and how they used to care for me and be like, I'm not crazy for having gotten attached the way I did. Yes, I think I form attachment too quickly and I have certain anxious attachment tendencies when it comes to like romantic endeavors, but it was kind of validating to be like, oh, like this is so different from how things are now, and it makes sense that I really got my hopes up based on this. So like I let myself have it for a little bit, but then it got to a point where it's like, okay, now I'm starting to like hold on to or like go back to this time for comfort to like give me hope and to like fuel the like, oh, but how could he feel that way about me then and not now? And then it becomes unhealthy, right? And so I think the biggest step for me was just like deleting all those messages. Not even so that I couldn't look at them anymore, but more so like, sure, this was a thing that happened, but this is not the case anymore. And I need to just like delete it to like accept that that is the past and this is the present. And then in terms of removing reminders, like, I don't know, the Lego we built together is still here. That I don't think matters. I just don't think removing triggers is that relevant for me because I'm like, dude, I'm like thinking about this person all the fucking time anyway, like whatever. I will say like deleting the contact and then resaving it, because at least for me, like every time I was like sharing something or texting something or sending a message, like the suggested contact was obviously him. And so like his number's still saved in my phone, but just making it so that like his photo and his like haha, hee hee, funny little contact name isn't popping up like every 5 seconds. I don't know. It doesn't make a huge difference, but I do think I have slowly found myself like not doing the weird, like, I don't know, in past situations, I've been like, let me see their recently listened to artists on Spotify. Like, what the fuck is that going to tell you, girl? But those behaviors are very normal. And it's, you don't have to like try to stop yourself from doing them all in the beginning, because I think those behaviors always kind of like gradually taper down for me, but you don't want to like gratify yourself with it too much, because it is like you trying to hold on to something that's gone and you have to like accept it's gone at some point. no shit. Okay, this next thing is probably one of the ones that has been the hardest for me in the past. And it is the idea of like closure is fake, or like closure is not truly necessary for your healing. And this I also think is particularly difficult for neurodivergence because we want to make sense of things. And I think for me, I'm such an empath. Shut up. But like, I kind of move through life in a like, what would I do in this scenario? Or like, if I did this to another person, like, what would that mean coming from me? While it's good emotional intelligence and like in general is a really good thing that probably like leads me to treating people pretty well, I think in these scenarios, I get really caught up on trying to not only rationally understand like why something has happened, but also like put myself in their situation and try to like understand it from me being in their POV. And that's just like not fucking possible because people are different. And I think what you have to like really be honest with yourself about is like, are you really looking for closure, or are you looking for a way that this maybe could have worked out? Because I think for me, it's like, oh, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't understand why they would do this or how they could do this to me, or like, how can this thing be true, but this thing not be true? Like, oh, how can they be attracted to me and like care about me, but like not want to be with me for the rest of for the rest of their life? Do you really want to understand that? Or are you just trying to find a loophole of like, oh, maybe if I had done this thing differently, or we had had this conversation, or I had pointed out this revelation to them, or if they had met me at this other time, then things could have worked out. I think it's very rare that closure is truly what you're seeking. It's more so like, this doesn't make sense to me, and if I think through it enough, maybe I can find a what if of like, if this thing had changed, this could still be possible. Like, I think if you have truly at your core accepted this is over, there's no need for closure or understanding. You just, you know, it's over. And the other scenarios and the what ifs like don't matter. And I think at least for me, I can really cling on to like what I did have with this person or what they did feel for me. I think about like how much I cared about this person and how much I would have made it work and like done everything to try and hold on to them. I don't know, it like sounds so dumb, but it's like, if this person wanted to be with you, they would be with you. If one small decision or like strategic move makes the difference between me ending up with this person and not ending up with this person, I don't want them, right? So like in my situation, I'm like, oh, I can tell myself like, maybe I came on too strong and then I like scared them away because they like couldn't match my feelings, or like they were too scared of hurting me because I really was like vulnerable about like my past trauma, and I feel like maybe I should have held my cards closer to my chest, played a little more hard to get, like dated other people, and then had that like chase phase. Like maybe because we skipped the chasing phase, they like didn't go through the phase of being like, does she want me or not, and feeling that excitement. I don't think those things are irrelevant. Like maybe if I had done it that way, like this person would have been infatuated with me for longer. But I'm like, I don't want to be with someone who's only with me because I like played hard to get in the beginning, you know? Like I think if it's someone you want to spend the rest of your life with, like they're gonna see you in pretty much every state, and I think I should be able to show up pretty authentically as myself, and I don't think I should have to like play my cards in a very specific way to like get them. You know, like your soulmate would want to be with you is what it always boils down to, TBH. But yeah, I would get caught in these like thought cycles of like seeking closure, trying to understand, breaking down all these what ifs. Like it would be endless. Like there were situations where I was like in these thought cycles like a year after like a 2-month situationship ended. This is obviously when I was much younger. And I do think neurodivergence just kind of like makes it way fucking worse. And to be honest, I don't have that much good advice for breaking those cycles. Like obviously I just talked about like what you have to tell yourself, but that's just like things to think. Like in terms of actionable things to do, I don't know that I have that much advice, because I don't think I really got out of it until I got on antidepressants. Like my main feeling getting on them hasn't been like, oh, I'm happier. You know how some people say like that's a Lexapro smile where it's like your life's falling apart, but you're just like kind of numb and happy and your feelings are kind of dumbed down. I don't have that experience on meds. I still like get stressed, get sad, get angry. I think the biggest thing for me is it kind of helps like break these obsessive thought cycles. I'm obviously not telling you to go get on SSRIs if you went through a breakup, but that's just honestly what has been the most helpful for me. I think some more practical advice that I've seen, like if you are in a situation where like this person used to feel a certain way about you or treat you a certain way and then it suddenly disappeared and you can't make sense of it, there are like certain journaling techniques that are helpful, right? Like making a list of like exactly how they were before and how they were now, and really acknowledging the difference, but not trying to understand what caused it. Just truly being like, that was them then, this is them now. All I have to evaluate this person is how they're acting now. And I think, honestly, my overall thing with journaling, like I personally didn't find it that helpful in the past because I think I'm already introspective almost to a fault. And like I just said, I get caught in these thought cycles. So I can like fill an entire journal about someone and not actually have it really help me that much. I did see someone on TikTok say like, you have to, I wish I remembered exactly what they said. They were saying writing things down to release them. So I think journaling is only helpful if you're like putting it down on paper and being like, I'm disposing of this thought or this feeling. It's, again, this is very woo-woo, but like, you have to think of journaling as a way of like ejecting it, not just like, oh, let me just like brain dump. I think brain dumping helps some people, but for me, it's like, it really has to be an exercise of letting this thought or this feeling go. And then they also said like, you write to like dispel something and then you like speak something to like make it true or like manifest. I'll talk about manifestation later. And honestly, I kind of feel the same way about talking to people about like feelings you're having. I think it's really helpful to have friends there to support you and listen to you and validate your feelings. But I also think, similar to journaling, it can become an endless cycle of you just like constantly venting to them. Like you have to rant to people in a way that's productive. I'm putting this feeling out in the world, but I'm processing it and I'm letting it go. Otherwise, you're just like terrorizing. I don't want to say terrorizing because I think true friendship is listening to your friend complain about the same guy or complain about the same thing like a million times. Like I would do that for any of my friends and they would for me. But what I'm saying is like actually evaluate whether you constantly venting to your friend is doing something for you. Because I think I have lost friendships partially because I was such an emotional burden to them. Like in retrospect, I'm like, oh, like me constantly talking to them obviously was hard on them, but it also wasn't helping me. Like there is an intentional and productive way to talk to your friends about what you're going through. So I think it's just important to be mindful about that. What I'm not trying to say is like worry that you're burdening your friends with your feelings. You should never have to worry about that. And if you are, like, you should work on that and you should find friends who don't make you feel that way. I'm getting off topic. Oh, some other helpful journaling exercises. One that I saw someone on TikTok do that I also did was writing about thoughts that are in your lane and thoughts that are out of your lane. I actually ended up kind of going about it a different way. Basically, like thoughts out of your lane are like things that you're constantly hyperfixating on thinking about related to this breakup. And I think what was helpful for me is like listing very specific triggers. So for example, like me and this person had a lot of mutual friends, and sometimes like I'll see a mutual friend's profile and it shouldn't really matter because like they're just a person I know and it's not, but it like starts to trigger me, or like just specific things that like once it comes to my mind, I just kind of carry that downward spiral with me and just like really identifying certain things I get fixated on. Like, oh, like thinking about how much he was in love with his ex and how long they were together. And then I can just like think about that for like 30 minutes. And just like identifying like the easiest things that I tend to latch onto and spiral about, so that I can be more proactive about like nipping it in the bud and not going down that spiral. And then as you probably guessed, things in your lane are like things that you can try to think about instead. This tends to be difficult in the beginning because you're like, I don't enjoy anything, I'm not excited about anything, and I'm just sad and everything sucks. Actually, let me look in my journal and see what I wrote. I guess while we're on the topic of journaling, actually, I have like a little secret thing behind my headboard right here where I store my journals. I have 3 different journals, which is a surefire sign of mental illness. I'll walk you through them. First, this yellow journal is one that I've had for years. This is just a brain dump journal, except I only tend to journal when I'm going through a breakup or something. So this is kind of low-key just like a crash out journal, lol. Then I have the 5-minute journal, which I talked in my AM PM routine video about how I feel about this. There are like tweaks that I would make to the prompts, but you just do it in the morning and the evening every day. And I have honestly found it helpful. This is a bit off topic from breakups. Just in general, I found it helpful because I feel a little bit more aware of time passing, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if it's made me like that much more grateful or positive, but because I'm journaling like just for like 3 seconds every morning and every day, it feels like time slows down and I appreciate each day as a day instead of them all kind of blending together. That's been like honestly my biggest takeaway. I think it's really helpful for days where you're like off to a bad start and you like don't get out of bed until like, I don't know, fucking 2 p.m. That's like my influencer privilege speaking, because who the fuck else can get out of bed at 2 p.m. But it forces me to like open this journal and like think about things I'm grateful for. And then I can like pick a really positive affirmation. And it makes me feel like I can reclaim the day and not just like give up on it and throw it away, you know? And then this last one I just got recently, it's a daily planner. This is more just like my daily checklist. So sometimes I do it in the evening, sometimes I do it in the morning. But I just like write down physically all the things I want to do and then check them off at the end of the day. This is something I've always kind of done. It's just really helpful for me, especially as someone who freelances, but just in general, I think like it helps clear your brain fog. If you like feel like you have a million things to do, like often once you write them down, you're like, it's actually not that bad. And it helps you just organize your day a little bit more. Because I think if you don't tell yourself, these are the things I need to get done today, it's really easy to just kind of like productively kill time. I don't know, maybe that's just me. Anyways, here's my in my lane, out of my lane. So out of my lane, I wrote, wow, I don't honestly remember writing a lot of these, even though it was pretty recently. Like the thought that there are no good men out there, thinking about how he treated me in the beginning, thinking about like whether he misses me or he regrets it, thinking about some of the really hurtful things he said to me, not like intentionally hurtful, but just like, you know, those like lingering tough words that you had to hear. It's really easy to like fixate on that. The idea that there's a pattern or something wrong with me. I think I have a tendency, I mean, okay, yeah, the 6 to 7 consecutive failed talking stages is just kind of a tough thing to go through, but I have a tendency to like try to tell myself it's a pattern or like it's this like curse or cycle. But in reality, like each situation is pretty different. And if I look at the overall trajectory, I'm moving in a really positive direction. So for example, this is something that's like in my lane to think about. I am getting closer to meeting the right person. Like in the beginning, they weren't people you were compatible with, or they weren't good guys, or like you didn't hold yourself to a certain standard and you just like let yourself be in these ambiguous situations. Versus it's like, okay, this most recent situation, it was exclusive. Like you guys both wanted a long-term relationship. He was a really good guy. You were compatible. It's sad it didn't work out, but like overall, like you're getting closer. Like life is moving in a positive direction. Some other things I wrote in my lane, new things that you want to crochet or knit, planning summer trips. I guess for me, I am kind of in a cycle where like I have a pretty good grasp on my like breakup moving on timeline. And so I know that if I like plan trips a few months out, like while I'm in a bad place, I'll usually be in a really good place by the time the trip comes around. So I think when you're sad, it's a good time to book a trip like a few months out. And it's okay if you're not looking forward to it and you're not excited about it. Just it's like a way to manifest that like you'll be in a better place by then. Discover new neighborhood spots, read more books, telling myself that I have so many options, because I do. Like I have hundreds of Hinge likes. Are they really, for the most part, quite unfortunate looking and saying weird things? Yes, but it could be worse, you know? I have options. My handwriting is so messy. I genuinely don't. Oh, it says look back from when you're 80. Okay, this is something I saw on TikTok. Act like your 80-year-old self got to come back to this phase in your life and you get one day and like how you would spend it. I mean, obviously if you're like in a corporate job, you can't just be like, not doing my job, but it's like a good attitude of like, oh, this phase of life I'm in right now, like I will look back on so fondly, and there will be so many things that I miss and that like when I'm older I wish I could do. So I haven't taken that advice very explicitly, but I do sometimes like think about it just to like get some perspective. I haven't literally woken up and tried to do exactly what I would do if I was an 80-year-old in my body, because I'm not totally sure what I would do. Maybe because I'm not 80. Anyway, I got very off topic. The next like overall category of advice is like detaching your ego from the whole thing. I will say I don't know how helpful my advice on like how to achieve this is going to be, because I have like always been a very not like, I definitely have my insecurities, but I think in general, I've always been a pretty confident person with a very self-informed sense of self. If you give me some criticism that I know is completely baseless, I won't let it affect me. It goes both ways. If you compliment me and I don't agree with it, I also won't accept that compliment. But I think even if you aren't naturally a very confident person, you can gain confidence from like your experiences in your relationships. Like, for example, I have so many amazing friends in my life. And I look at them and I'm like, the fact that like these people want to be friends with me and they treat me so well means that like I'm also an amazing person and I'm also an amazing friend. With how little luck I've had romantically, it is easy to like question like, okay, is something wrong with me, or like, am I not lovable? I will preface that some people can be very different in their friendships and their like romantic relationships. Honestly, sometimes like people who are really good friends tend to like be like super chill in their friendships and then like take all their like negative emotions and put it on their romantic partner. So I'm not saying that just because like all your friendships are great, your dating situation is going to be like exactly mirroring that. But I know for me, I just know how I treat the people I date and I always treat them really well. But also I'm like, my friendships and the fact that like I have always attracted so many amazing friends who are like really talented and incredible people in their own right and also treat me really well, like tells me that like I know how to do like human relationships well and that I have things to offer as like a person to go through life with. But anyway, back to my original point. I think this is a little bit more relevant, obviously, if you've like been done wrong in some kind of way, but you really have to detach like your ego and your sense of self from how other people treat you. Sometimes I saw this thing where it's like, oh, was it a heartbreak or was it an ego shattering? And I don't think this is very relevant for me because I don't really like seek validation or like my sense of worth from dating. So I think like a man not wanting me is not going to affect my ego that much. But I know for some people it's like, oh, like, did you really love this person and are you really sad they're gone? Or are you just really affected that like someone you thought should think so highly of you could treat you this way? You know, like they're obviously related, but they are a little bit different. I think something I get really caught up in is like, how could this person do this to me? And I think this is common for a lot of, I mean, this is generalization. Obviously, I don't want to alienate people, but it is common. I think for a lot of women dating men, being in situationships or talking stages or whatever you want to call it, and just getting treated with like no basic decency, right? Like talking to someone for months and they like straight up just ghost you, or like this has happened to me, like they suddenly just like emerge in like a relationship with another girl. And I think in those scenarios, it's like what I was saying earlier, like you keep trying to understand it from your perspective and it's like, how could you do this? But it's like, you're a good person and you move through the world with empathy and you constantly think about the consequences your actions will have on other people. Like, of course you wouldn't do that. But there are so many people who are moving through life, like not even in an intentionally malicious way. I think they're like, a lot of them are just like, I don't know, battling their demons or whatever the fuck. But they're just like treating humans like based on like what they need to get by or feel good about themselves. They're not like, I think when I date, I'm constantly thinking about like, what effect will I have on this person's life? Like, even if it doesn't work out, like, am I going to hurt them, you know? But like so many people don't do that. Like they literally just like follow their base instincts and do not think about like the collateral damage on other people's feelings. And that's not something that you're like ever going to be able to understand or empathize with if you're a good person. And you should just really consider it a blessing that you find their behavior baffling. Like you should find it baffling. And people might tell you that like men are just like that or he didn't like you enough. Like it's not okay. I'm not like making it okay. It doesn't matter if like he literally thinks you're not hot and not attractive and doesn't want to be with you, or if like he worships you, people should treat each other with basic decency. And I think that's been kind of lost in modern dating. It's very like, oh, if you don't want to marry her, then like, who cares how you treat her? That's not okay. But you really have to, you know, embody this idea that like someone's behavior is only a reflection of them and not you. If they treated you horribly, they've probably treated a lot of amazing women horribly. It's not because like anything about you deserved that, right? Honestly, this has been one of the hardest things for me to accept when it comes to particularly romantic love, is that it's not merit-based. Like when I tell people about my bad dating luck or like no one wanting to cuff me, they're like, oh, but you're like hot and funny and smart and accomplished and like creative and, you know, like well-dressed and kind. And I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm confused too, but there is a limited amount of control that we have over who we fall in love with romantically. Like I have definitely had guys that I've met where I'm like, this person would treat me so well for the rest of my life. I literally wish I could fall in love with them, but I just don't feel that way about them. And I can't like hold it against someone if they have that same experience, but with me. Like honestly, with some of these people who have ended up deciding they don't want to be with me, I can look at women they fell in love with before me and women they fell in love with after me. And most of the time, they're not like better than me in any way. And often they don't treat the person in question better than I treated them. But it's just not a merit-based system. And I think this is very difficult for me to wrap my head around as someone who's been like a chronic overachiever and who has always tried to perform and excel and work hard to get the things I want. I cannot make someone love me by being like a better version of myself. Obviously, you want to, you know, be the best version of yourself, but I cannot make myself more lovable to someone by like trying to maximize the value I offer. And the thing is, the way I give love is also not merit-based. Like a lot of friends have told me like, oh, you treat men way better than they deserve to be treated. Like you gave them way more love and care than they deserve. But the thing is, love is not a finite resource. I trust that I can always generate more love. Like being hurt by someone has never stopped me from giving just as much love to the next person. So I don't worry about giving my love to the wrong person or giving away too much of it. Obviously, you want to be mindful about how you give other people access to yourself. But all these people I've dated, the good ones and the bad ones, I've never regretted like treating them with a lot of love and kindness because I have an infinite amount of that to give. Like, I don't think I need to be stingy with it. And I don't think they have to deserve it to get it from me either. And so while it's a very hard truth to accept, I think dating has been easier for me when I've kind of detached from the idea that love is fair. Like life isn't fair, love isn't fair either. Whether or not someone can fall in love with me, like it's not obviously completely irrelevant to who I am as a person, but there's a limit to how much it actually has to do with me, you know? I also think if you go through like a breakup or any kind of dating experience that does compromise your self-worth, it's okay to very intentionally and actively look for ways to rebuild it. Like I had one friend who like just went through like a really long on and off, I think pretty toxic relationship that like really by the end of it, like made him feel like pretty worthless. And he actually like asked his friends to like write him letters, basically like telling him like what we love about him. I mean, I think it's like a beautiful exercise regardless of who you are and whether you're going through anything. Like that's why I think like birthday cards or like card writing is amazing because if you're someone like me, you don't normally do words of affirmation, but you do have like so many amazing things to say about this person. And maybe they don't know you feel this way. It's important to like reconnect with whatever gives you a sense of worth, right? So like for me, it takes a while, right? But like creating, like being creative and like crocheting or knitting or sewing something like, and being like, oh my God, like so many people wouldn't be able to do this. Like I can do this. That's amazing. Or something else that's helpful for me because I don't seek my validation like externally as much is just like journaling about things that I love about myself. Like this is another good thing to kind of put like in your lane to think about instead of things that will put you in a downward spiral. Like all the things that I genuinely adore about myself, right? Like I'm creative. I think I'm very funny sometimes ish. And also, sorry, I only listed 2 things about myself that I like, but what I just thought of is it's also helpful to journal about things you love about yourself that you've maybe been less connected with. So for example, like I used to be like, honestly, I think a slightly more considerate friend when I was younger. And I honestly think this is a little bit normal, like with adult friendships. I think, you know, your own life does tend to get very busy and you want to intentionally make time for other people, but maybe you don't have like as much bandwidth for others. But like in college, for example, I used to be like really good about like making my friends care packages. Like if they had like a big performance for their like dance group or their a cappella group or their spoken word group coming up, and I know they're in like rehearsal all the time, I would like just make a little bag with like face masks and their favorite snacks and stuff to make things easier for them. And something like that, I'm like, oh, it's something I love about myself that I honestly have kind of like lost touch with. So like maybe I can lean more into that. After a breakup, you want to really try and pour love into yourself and take care of yourself. But also you have so much love and care that you were giving to someone, and you don't want to just like completely displace that like onto your friends. I think I've definitely had like some issues in the past where I just like take all the love that I want to give to a romantic partner and try and put them on everyone else, and then like get disappointed when it's not reciprocated. Like don't go crazy with it, but I think it can be helpful to like pour love and care into other people. And even though it's like you're doing it for others, I also think it can like help you reconnect with everything that you have to offer. Am I making any sense? Okay, and this is actually a perfect transition in the next part, which is rebuilding your life. I think this is kind of like a later phase. Again, like you have to get to a certain point where you feel ready to do this. I think certain phases of a breakup, it really is just like a time thing. But I think once you get to a point where you feel like you can actually take action, this is where you can kind of like, I don't know, accelerate your healing timeline or like change your trajectory to a more positive slope in your function. Sorry, I don't know why I'm thinking about graphs, like a y equals 2x situation. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So as I mentioned earlier, I have my planner. I do think keeping busy, as soon as you're like capable of actually getting out of bed and doing stuff, it is helpful. I'm not normally a distraction type of person. If anything, I think I lean in way too much to the like feel your feelings thing, to a point where I'm not even like processing or healing or grieving. I'm just like sitting in the sadness because it feels comfortable. If left to your own devices, you're gonna spiral and think about sad things. Like with this breakup, it's just like an objectively sad situation. So if I sit there and I like let myself think about it, it's gonna make me sad, like obviously. And so I found that, you know, like booking engagements earlier in the day. Again, this is influencer privilege because y'all ass is probably gonna have to go to the office, but just like making sure I have stuff that I have to get out of bed for, because otherwise I would just like cry for an hour in the morning. And, you know, like having your planner, like really making yourself busy. And I think it's also easier, honestly, if you like just tell yourself that you're forcing yourself. I think, and this goes for the breakup in general, I think it's hard if you put pressure on yourself to look forward to it or enjoy it. It's kind of like what I was saying about planning the vacation. Like when you're in this very like negative, sad part of your life, everything is negative and sad, and that's okay. You can't do things like expecting to enjoy them or expecting them to immediately make you feel better. You just have to trust that like you keep putting in that intention and that work and it will pay off eventually, if not now. The other thing is you have to be smart about what you're keeping yourself busy with. So unfortunately, when I'm going through a breakup, my favorite combo of watching TV and knitting doesn't cut it, because it like doesn't take enough of my focus to stop me from like thinking about things and being sad. I have found that I want like really high like activities that take up a lot of your brain. So this is so silly, but like when I was in Mexico City and we were like going through the markets, like you have to think so hard to like look through all the jewelry, look through all the clothes, and like decide what you like. And that was like the one part of the trip where I genuinely was not thinking about this man, because I was like using my whole brain to shop. And the same goes for like, I've been more into audiobooks and TV, because if you've tried listening to audiobooks, like if you zone out for a second, it's like very obvious, like you can't kind of like zone in and out. And so it truly like occupies all of my brain. Also, because I was listening to like The Martian and Project Hail Mary, that's like sci-fi, and those are not the kind of books where you can like zone out for a second, because I'll be like, wait, what the fuck is happening? So just like finding things that genuinely take your mind off of it. And honestly, when it comes to hanging out with friends, it's tricky. I found like really chill activities, like sitting and having a drink with a bunch of friends, can be hard, because I can just like, I'm in a group, so I can just kind of like go to my own sad place in my brain. Honestly, more like one-on-one engaged conversation has been like good for me. I've also found like not feeling the need to update everyone, because I think I came out of my hole and then no one knew what had happened. They just like knew it had ended. And at first I was like, each time I saw a new friend, I was explaining the situation, but I realized like it was making me sad anew. Not even that it was making me sad, but it was resurfacing all the what ifs, because people would hear it and be like, are you sure it's not because this? Are you sure it's not just the timing? Or like, he probably really regrets it. He's probably really sad. And it just like resurfaced all those like kind of obsessive thought cycles. The truth is like, sure, your friends want the tea, but in general, they just want what's best for you. So I just like tell people, I'm like, it's over. I think right now it's best for me like not to talk about it and to just like move forward, and like maybe I'll tell you eventually, but I've processed it, and it wouldn't be productive for me to like explain the whole thing right now. I think that's been a really, I don't want to say boundary, because it's not like anyone is like fucking forcing me to talk about it, but more like a boundary that I've just had to like really set with myself. The other thing that just like based on science is helpful is like building new neurological pathways by doing things, like new things that have nothing to do with them. So I'm actually so fucking lucky, because I was moving basically like a month after this breakup, and I feel like so amazing being in this new apartment that this person has like never seen or been in. Like it just makes it easier to feel like this was an element of the past. But I know people who don't move. So I've seen people on TikTok say they like literally just rearranged their room, and even that made them feel better. But yeah, like doing completely new things. I haven't really done that many completely new things, but like going to new restaurants, new cafes. 'Cause obviously when you go to places you've been with them, you just like remember the last time you were there, and you're like, damn, This has something to do with why I didn't move to this neighborhood. But when I was moving, like one of the neighborhoods I was considering was like around where he lived. And it was just like every cafe and stuff I obviously had gone to with him, and I was like, the vibes are not good. Versus like I'm in a relatively new neighborhood for me, so like every restaurant or cafe I go to is new. And again, it might not feel good while you're doing it, but I swear it does help. Oh, and as promised, I said I would talk about affirmations or like manifesting later. I am like the worst at manifesting. I've talked about this because I'm like overly grounded in reality and generally have a more negative way of thinking. But I have been trying to get more into like toxic, irrational positivity, and like trusting that it will add up. So even if it feels dumb, like really thinking about what I speak and put out in the world, not because I necessarily believe in like the woo-woo of it all, but because like I do think the story I tell other people about myself and the story I tell myself affects everything, Like I used to, and I guess this is like the one thing that was like positive that I took from this experience. Like this was like a really good guy. And I think before this, I was like, there are no good guys, And so like, while it's valid to really be struggling and have a lot of negative things to say about the men you're choosing from when you're like a woman in your late 20s dating in New York who dates men, I do think I have put like less energy into talking about how the options are bad, or how the men are ugly, or how like there are no good ones out there, or the good ones are taken, because it's not productive, like I'm not letting myself harp on that anymore. And I am like focusing on like, I have so many options, and like it's New York, like people are getting settled down later. And I mean, this is not positive for them, but like around my age, a lot of people like either get engaged or break up. So there are people coming out of long-term relationships who like probably do want something serious and are like newly single. You don't want to find them too newly single though, because I think that was kind of my mistake this time. Sorry, getting off topic. Just this idea of saying things even if you honestly don't believe them, and just trying to blindly believe that you will believe them at some point. I'm still not the best at this, but you know, I've been trying. I think just like finding routines that work for you. So like, I don't think you need 3 different journals. It's kind of a lot, but like figure out what works for you. What works for you, right? Like listing things you're grateful for, or like having an affirmation at the beginning of the day, or like listing your highlights of the day. And what I'll say about like all the advice I gave in this video is that when I was doing all these things, it felt like it wasn't working. I was like, oh my God, like what kind of like insane behavior is this triple journal thing? And like I was doing all of this against my will, and I felt like it wasn't working and I was going to be sad forever. I can't say like exactly which one thing made it better, but it has helped. Like I am moving forward with my life and feeling more positive a lot sooner than I usually do. Give yourself some grace and just treat it as like a hard thing that you're doing for like a later gratification, you know? Overall, I would say like be really kind to yourself. I think I'm lucky that I have like really great friends, but even if you don't have that support system, you can be kind with yourself. Like give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up for how you're feeling, because it doesn't ever help. Like you're going to feel how you feel regardless of like how great this person was or wasn't and how long you did or didn't date them. That part is like always necessary. You can't bully yourself into being happier or like moving on faster. Also, you really have to try your best to have perspective. Like I think what's been really helpful for me is like I had like another talking stage that ended like a year ago. I look back on that now and I'm like, oh, like it feels so irrelevant now. You have to trust that things are going to be so different a year from now. You can't let your brain convince you you're going to feel like this forever. You have to just know that even if you don't do any of the advice I give you, even if like all you do is lie around, with time, like things will get better. And I know I already said this and it's hard to hear, but your soulmate will want to be with you. And I realized I like made this video very kind of focused on the assumption that you're the one getting broken up with. But if you're the one who's doing the breaking up with, your soulmate is someone that you would feel sure about and that you wouldn't be able to imagine your life without. And sorry if you're the breaker-upper. I feel like I didn't give you as much consideration with this. And there definitely are burdens that are like specific to the person who ends things, right? Because you have to deal with more of the question of like, was this the right decision? And when you like miss them, you're like, did I do the wrong thing? And like, you're the one who technically led it to end. So you can't just like be the victim of the sadness. But either way, it's if it's meant to be, it'll happen. It's like, I don't know. I'm saying so many stupid fucking cliches, but like, I think especially with like romantic partnership, a lot of it is kind of true. And then the last thing, I think this is more specific to me, but just like thinking about when it's time to get back out there. Let me know if you guys want a podcast episode about, I guess, not even just getting back out there, but like dating in general. I mean, I'm the last person who should be giving dating advice because like, what the fuck do I have to show for it? But I think when it comes to like how to navigate dating apps or like how to make dating more fun if you're not someone who enjoys dating like me, I think that could be a funny topic to cover. So let me know. But yeah, that's some of my breakup advice. And to anyone who's going through a breakup of any kind, I really feel for you. And you just, honestly, I was going to say you have to believe it'll get better. Even if you don't believe it, it's fine. It'll get better. I remember like in the beginning, everyone was like, it'll get better. And I was like, bro, why are you telling me this? I know it'll get better. I have no fucking choice. I've been through this enough times. I know it will. Literally just like try to survive. It starts with survival, and you reach a point where you actually want to improve your own life. And then when that comes, you can take the steps to do that. But it won't last forever. And I do think listening to some of what I said in this episode will help expedite the process even a tiny bit. I totally forgot to say this in the beginning, actually. I was going to tell y'all that you should write down the actionable pieces of advice that resonated the most with you, so that you don't just listen to this episode and do nothing like me when I listen to breakup advice. But I forgot to say that in the beginning of the video. So now that we're at the end, write down the things that you want to actually take the action to do. And if you are not going through a breakup and you're just listening to this, then you're a real one. And I hope you're really happy, single or taken or in whatever romantic situation you're in. But yeah, that's the episode. I've been doing a lot of lighthearted ones, so I guess it was time for something a little more loaded. And as always, let me know what else you want me to talk about. And I will see y'all next time. Bye, guys.